Episode 348. A gunshot rang out from behind. The distance was too close. Swordpoint couldn't dodge it again, but even though he couldn't dodge, he had to keep running. Point of the sword kept frantically hammering his keyboard, only to find his character frozen in place.
Shit. Stun bullet.
A veteran player knows quality when they see it, but the stun effect didn't last long. Shaking it off, he immediately tried to run again. Another gunshot rang out closer this time, and he failed to dodge it. The hit sent Swordpoint's body floating into the air.
Launcher.
Jianfeng Zisuo was still wondering what skill that was. He really knew his stuff. Once launched, evading Lord Grimm's follow-up was an impossible task. A deafening boom exploded in his ears, sending a shockwave through the silent rain. The sensation was so visceral, it felt like the water was about to burst from the screen and splash right in his face. Swordpoint was blasted backward. He frantically adjusted his view, ready to execute a quick recover and land safely. But as his view spun, he spotted a monster right in his flight path. His sword's point was aimed with pure glee. If he slammed into this mob, it would instantly be counted as Lord Grimm's attack, and the creature would naturally retaliate. That would significantly boost my chances of getting away.
Heaven's on my side.
The tip of his sword was aimed right at the target, which was blissfully dreaming away, but in the blink of an eye, his character had already shot forward to the monster. The result? His blade just grazed past the creature's body, missing it by a hair's breadth. They were so close to colliding, yet they didn't.
Damn.
What a letdown. He'd even skipped the quick recover, expecting to slam into that little mob, but he'd missed it completely. He immediately checked his orientation and performed a quick recover. Fortunately, his skills were sharp, and he executed it flawlessly in that split second. The character rolled to his feet, only to see a flash of cold steel already slicing toward his face.
Already here?
Swordpoint's heart skipped a beat, but in the next instant he saw clearly it wasn't Lord Grimm rushing him, but a lowly mob pouncing at his face. Jianfeng Suaji froze for a moment, then felt a wave of utter despair wash over him. His flight didn't hit the mob, so Lord Grimm naturally drew no aggro. Instead, he landed right within the creature's aggro range. Now he was the one being targeted by this most intelligent and ferocious resident. Swordpoint had just gotten to his feet and was forced to roll aside again, narrowly dodging the monster's blade. Dealing with a single mob like this was no sweat for him. The real question was, would Lord Grimm over there just stand by and watch? His gaze followed the sword's point, and a quick glance confirmed Lord Grimm was already charging in fast. His fantasy of the mobs holding Lord Grimm back so he could escape didn't come true. Instead, he was the one getting tangled up, giving Lord Grimm the perfect opening to hunt him down. Trying to fend off the mobs while dodging Lord Grimm, the swordsman's heart was racing with panic. Before Lord Grimm had even closed the distance, he raised his weapon and fired another shot. The shot was fired with perfect stealth, making it impossible to tell from the sword's point what kind of attack was coming. If it was just a regular shot, he could take it and keep moving. But if it's another one of those weird Spitfire rounds with some bizarre status effect, getting hit would be a disaster. He didn't dare move toward the sword's point, but the bullet was coming so fast, there was no time to think. Panicking, he swerved to dodge the shot, only to hear a low, mocking chuckle from behind.
Someone's laughing.
He was still trying to pinpoint the direction of the sword's threat when a flicker of movement caught the corner of his eye. He whipped his head around. A resident of Sin City, who had been crouching in the corner, was now standing up and moving toward him again.
Shit.
Swordpoint nearly coughed up a mouthful of old blood. A moment of inattention, and he'd stepped into another mob's aggro range, pulling yet another angry citizen. Swordpoint hurriedly changed direction, trying to get an early head start. But he'd only taken a few steps when he heard footsteps closing in. With all his zigzagging, Lord Grimm had already arrived right in front of him. He wasn't going to engage directly, but he still needed to create some openings to fight. With gritted teeth, he counted to 3, then suddenly whirled around with a draw sword slash.
Whoa.
Swordpoint cursed out loud. Lord Grimm leaped high into the air behind him, the sword light of the draw sword slash passing right beneath his feet. And behind him, 2 more small monsters he'd somehow aggroed were struck head-on by that very same draw sword slash from Swordpoint. The 2 mobs had been focused on Lord Grimm, but after taking that hit, their attention snapped to Swordpoint. Brandishing their blades, they lunged at him. 4 of them now. At this point, Swordpoint couldn't be more aware. He hadn't bumped into any monsters. He'd just blundered right into their aggro range. The 2 minions trailing Lord Grimm were no accident. This was a deliberate setup, a blatant act of retaliation. The very trick he'd used against Soft Mist was now being turned against him. But his opponent's method was far more sophisticated. It wasn't just a cheap trick. He'd been blown right into the aggro range of the mobs. That took some real skill. Swordpoint was already sweating. 4 monsters he could just about handle. But a glance at Lord Grimm showed the guy wasn't in any hurry to press the attack.
Is this guy trying to pull even more mobs?
The thought struck Swordpoint immediately, and he quickly began scanning his surroundings. This is a leveling zone, after all. If there weren't plenty of mobs, how would players even level up? Every few steps down the street, a resident mob lurked. As Jianfeng Jisuo scanned the area, he saw each one as a potential opponent, ready to engage at any moment. He strained to observe his surroundings, to observe Lord Grimm. Yet Lord Grimm didn't seem particularly interested in the nearby mobs either, making no move to draw them over. For a moment, Swordpoint was at a loss. Just what was Yi Chu planning? Swordpoint glanced toward one end of the street, where a few of his guildmates were rushing to his aid. Frankly, with just this handful of men, he harbored no illusions about being a match for Ye Qiu. He was simply hoping that more bodies would create more chaos, and with greater chaos, his own chances of slipping away would be that much higher. Just as he was thinking this, a figure suddenly shifted atop a nearby roof. The grenadier who had earlier been blasted off by Su Mucheng's attack had finally snuck back up. With a single glance at the street below, he moved to support Swordpoint's position. Grenade in hand, he rushed over and silently lobbed it from the rooftop toward Lord Grimm's back.